Hi guys. I wanted to jump in here today and just share, or tonight actually, after having a day of clients today. Today's been one of my client days. Just some things that I've probably been discussing quite recently with clients and people who are interested in working with me. And this is something that I observe quite a lot with people who have an autoimmune condition, and based on when I'm digging and diving and going into someone's health history, and they might say to me they've got autoimmune, or I uncover an autoimmune condition whilst working with someone. And there's a few things that I want you to understand, and I want to share with you around stress, trauma, and autoimmune, because particularly with autoimmune is something, and I was having this discussion with my group on my group call the other day, talking about the thyroid and thyroid antibodies, which is really important because a lot of people have thyroid autoimmune condition, either Hashimoto's or Graves' disease. And it's basically any type of autoimmune, first of all, is when the body is attacking itself in some way. Now, I got asked the question today, is it genetic? And my answer to that is there's genetic dispositions for certain autoimmune conditions. They don't know, from my understanding, I'm not God, but my understanding of what, I guess, where the research is at this time, because it always changes, is that they don't understand why someone will have a genetic disposition. There is a genetic disposition for a certain autoimmune. If someone has Hashimoto's in the family, you may have a susceptibility to developing that type of autoimmune. Why does one person develop one type of autoimmune and another person develops another? But what I want you to understand is, if you're watching this and you do have an autoimmune condition, or you know someone who does have an autoimmune condition and you may have not had it for a really long time, or you may have just found out that you've got it, when I talk to people and I say, when was it diagnosed? And you might have had the autoimmune condition for a long time and it could have been undiagnosed. But when in the case that it happens to unfold and is discovered, I always ask that person, what happened before that? And I actually ask this question with everything. When there's something that's big happen with our health and something that has sort of triggered it, essentially, to get to that point, to escalate. What happened, a year, 18 months before that? What happened in this around that time? And often there will be more than often, a big stressful event that has happened. And with autoimmune, there's a lot of different variations, there's a lot of different factors, but it's not just genetics, because the thing that influences genetics is our environment. And there is a guy called Bruce Lipton, if you want to get into this is called Epigenetics, meaning above genetics. There's a book called Biology of Belief. I highly recommend it. When I read this, it blew my mind, because it helped me understand my tumor a lot more, and knowing I knew deep down that there was this emotional cause to my tumor. And this is not autoimmune, but I'm sharing that. And I knew there's something going on, and I knew it was what I was going through, and I had all this stuff I hadn't expressed, and I was like holding on to all this grief and pain, and I literally had to come out of my body, and exploded literally in the form of a tumor, because it bled within itself. It's like it exploded out of me. So when that happened, it's like what was going on beforehand. But when I read this book, I was like, oh my gosh, that explains so much, because what he talks about in this book is the power of genes, and that how they can switch on and off. And it's not It's not just our DNA that switches that on and off. What switches the genes on and off, whether it be a cancer gene, which is an oncogene, or an autoimmune condition, is the environment. And the environment is everything in that environment, from our physical environment, so chemicals in our environment, the food we eat, the vitamins and minerals we absorb, as well as our own beliefs and thoughts. And what that basically means is your nervous system and how safe you are in your body. And my intention with when I'm doing the work on myself now and through my own healing process, is now to purely create safety in my body. But when I got sick, my nervous system was in such a state of alarm that I did not know how to create safety in my body. And this is only something I've really learned on a really deep level the last few years, and it's actually gotten, progressed more and more and more. But what I see, the common denominator with what I see with people with autoimmune, is that there's stress and that they're in this constant state of alarm. They're hypervigilant, and there may have been some traumatic event that has happened, or there's been a series of traumatic events from childhood. And when I talk about traumatic, it doesn't have to be massive traumatic, like abuse victim type scenarios. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. It's just basically how my nervous system responded. And if my nervous system was in a state of alarm as I was growing up because I had to mold myself a certain way, or I was emotionally responsible for my parents, and my parents were acting like, essentially, they didn't know how to regulate their nervous system, and so all their traumas came up, and then I felt emotionally responsible, which is what happens to a lot of us. And then we carry that through us, and the meaning we give it is we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough. And then when we go into adulthood, we feel responsible for everyone else, and we carry a whole heap of guilt and shame. Autoimmune is attacking the self. It's attacking of the self. It's like a self-attack. So it's like you're judging the shit out of yourself. And the common denominator, the common thing I see with people who I'm working with who have autoimmune, is there's this like harsh, brutal criticism of themselves. That I can say to be true. From my experience, that's my just observation. It's like this harsh self-judgment. They beat the shit themselves, they judge, they shame themselves, they abandon themselves, and there is no self-compassion. And so the body is literally turning on itself and turning inward and attacking. How that forms then on one person seems to be different, because then there's other factors that come into the role, come into it. But that's the part I want to share with you, because it's like that then also gives us the power to go, okay, well, if it's our environment that switches our genes on and off, we also have if it switches it on, we also have the ability to switch it off. What are you doing, you maniac? Here, come here. Here. Sorry, we'll just give it a dog. Here, eat that. And so there is power in that if you choose to be powerful. I don't want this to be like feel like shit, because there's also power in it, because you can switch things off, you can change things, you have that power. But what needs to happen is, if you have stress, a huge amount of stress, and you're dealing with autoimmune, you've got to look at it from the biochemical point of view. What do you want? Come here, maniac. Come here. Come say hello. Alright. You've got to look at it from the biochemistry point of view, and you've got to also look at it from the nervous system point of view. And this is the bit that gets missed. And sometimes when I share this with people, they're like, oh my God, you've just described me. And I'm like, I know, because it was also me, I get it. Like, that's where I was. My nervous system was I didn't feel safe in my body. I didn't know how to create safety in my body. I was hyper vigilant, probably my whole childhood, walking on eggshells and going through and trying to navigate that. And then and when you come into then being an adult, it's like the body plays catch up. The body keeps is an emotional scorecard. We hold on to emotions in the body. And this is what has the power to switch genes on and off. And when we're talking about autoimmune, it's like, okay, well, what happened? Tell me about your traumas. Tell me about what your nervous system is like. Tell me about the stress in your life. And sometimes people will be like, oh, yeah, like, I'm not too stressed or blah, blah, blah. But there's a whole heap of stuff they're holding on to and they don't even know how to relax. Or they don't know how to feel safe in their body. And so when I'm talking about the nervous system, I'm talking about stuff. It's like, how much safety do you have? How much safety can you create for yourself in your own body? And it's an embodied experience. You can't think your way out of it. And you've got to have someone to support you, guide you, and teach you how to do that, as I did, from many different mentors to help me, teach me those tools. And I'm still a student to learn those processes if we really want to get on top of these conditions. And so many people have got autoimmune. The other thing that I wanted to say is there can also be environmental stresses. So stresses are any type of pressure that puts the body and takes the body out of homeostasis, out of equilibrium. And so it can also be viruses. It can also be underlying viruses like Epstein-Barr virus, stuff like that. It's like, oh, I had glandular fever like years ago and it was really horrible, and it could be still sort of sitting there. Could be COVID that has triggered autoimmune. Could be other things in that realm. So it can be toxins that someone has been exposed to that can trigger autoimmune. It can be vitamin and mineral deficiencies. I see a lot of people who are very low in vitamin D, which is really inflammatory. With the thyroid, if they've got autoimmune, sometimes they're very low in iodine, very low in selenium. The thyroid hasn't been working for a long time. But autoimmune is also one of the biggest causes of hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. So it's a complex conversation, but what I want you to just understand if you're watching this is the nervous system plays a massive part of this picture, and I don't think it's given enough credit. And I don't really know any mainstream allopathic health practitioner really that sits down and says, okay, what's your stress levels like? How do you view yourself? How do you view yourself? Do you constantly beat the shit out of yourself? Are you constantly beating yourself up? Are you shaming yourself? Are you judging yourself? Where is that coming from? Whose voice is that? All of those aspects of that make a big impact on us, and that's the conversation that needs to open up, because someone can be putting up with an autoimmune again and again and again and again, but it's all the little or big traumas that have added up and we haven't dealt with them and processed them, and we have these battles with ourselves, with the different parts of us, the shadow parts of us that we judge ourselves and blame ourselves and often live in the past and cannot see the gift in the things that we have gone through and the gifts that they have gone if they're a trauma, and we carry it with us. It's like carrying a big bag of rocks around with us. And so this is important, because if you have an autoimmune condition, you're much more likely to develop another one. And there is this component of going, okay, we've got to look at all the aspects that can be switching it on and off. But it's often a stressful event that would have triggered it, or multiple, and the gun is already loaded. It's the event, the stress on the body that can be the final straw that breaks the camel's back, but the gun is already loaded, and these things may have been going on for a long time. It could be heavy metals, things like that. Accumulation effect, usually not just one in isolation, in my observation. So it's complex, but that's the part that I want you to know. If you've got an autoimmune condition, it's like, okay, well, how long have you had it, and what sort of things have been going on for you around the time it was diagnosed? And maybe you know deep down that your nervous system is in a state of alarm. You don't know how to relax. You're constantly beating the shit out of yourself, which you might not talk about with other people, but it's okay if you're in that space, because I know what that's like. But it's changing the relationship and changing that conversation with yourself. And the conversation needs to change in order for things to shift and change if you want to keep moving forward. What happens if you don't address an autoimmune? It can end up really serious. I also had this question. You know, like if the thyroid autoimmune condition isn't addressed, it can end up as thyroid cancer. You know, the disease state can progress. And so I don't know, I sort of feel like an autoimmune now is so prevalent in so many people that it's almost like not really taken that serious in a lot of aspects. I had a client today who I've had several today actually, and this is why I'm talking about it, but you know, I tested her thyroid antibodies, and she looks like she's got Hashimoto's to me. I was trying to ascertain, like, have you had this conversation with a practitioner before? Has anyone said this to you? She's like, maybe someone mentioned it, I don't really know. I was like, okay, they've just sort of like washed over it, or she can't remember, we're not quite sure, we're trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together at the moment. But if that's not a serious conversation, like the conversation is just sort of like, oh, you've got this, oh, okay, there's nothing else offered, that is where the problem, and then so many people have got it, and then I come across people that have multiple autoimmune conditions, and once you've got one, you're more susceptible to creating another. Why? Because the environment is still the same, things are progressing, you've now got this immune system that is dysfunctional, and the body is attacking itself, so it's a snowball effect. That is all. If you've got any questions, I hope in some ways that resonated. Please share your insights. I'd love to hear. Please reach out to me if you've got any questions or you want to chat more about it, and I'll see you soon. Have a beautiful night. Bye.